Today, we're going to Africa. From the smallest islands to the biggest cities in the continent, we'll be visiting every single country in Africa, and we're building the tallest building in every single one of them. So without further ado, let's get building. We start off this list with Sao Tome and Principe at the number 54 spot. It's a 21 meter tall Monte Palacio, a residential building in the country's capital Sao Tome. It's nothing too crazy, but it's got some nice little details. Not too bad for such a tiny country. For the number 53 we go to another tiny island, but this time all the way across on the other side of the continent. It's the 30 meter tall Le Chantier Mall in the Seychelles. A shopping mall that's actually currently closed for major renovations after a huge fire destroyed parts of the building in 2021. Luckily, the reconstruction seems to be going well and it should be able to reopen any moment now. Next up is Burundi with the 32 meter tall Panoramique Hotel. Located in Bujumbura, the country's largest city, it's one of the nicest hotels in the country. I saw a lot of reviews saying the building is starting to age a bit while doing my research, but we don't care about that here. In Minecraft it looks good as new again. At number 51 we find the Bajanani Mosque in Comoros. Located in the city of Moroni, it is one of the oldest and largest mosques in the country. It was built in 1427 and this actually makes it the oldest building on this entire list as well. We then go to Monrovia, Liberia for the Central Bank of Liberia building. It's honestly nothing too special, just a fairly generic symmetrical office building. So instead I'll tell you that Liberia is actually the oldest independent republic in Africa, having gained its independence in 1847. Up next is the standard Lesotho Bank building at number 49. Located in Lesotho's capital Maseru, the building stands 39 meters tall. I actually decided to build the two smaller buildings in front as well, as the tallest building by itself would have been kinda boring. These two other buildings being connected by a bridge and all the trees around the whole complex, I actually think it's quite a nice build. We then go to Eswatini for the 39 meter tall Mona residence in one of the country's two capitals, Mbabane. It's quite an interesting building, with every single side of it being completely unique. So I was really happy to see that Eswatini actually has street view, something that was not the case for many other countries on this list. Anyway, it's not the most exciting building or anything, but it was fun to build. The NICE building in Eritrea is up next at 39 meters tall. NICE in this case stands for the National Insurance Corporation of Eritrea. Located in the country's capital Asmara, it serves as the head office of the country's largest insurance company. We then go to the Gambia for the 42.5 meter tall Petroleum House. It houses the country's Ministry of Petroleum and Energy, which is responsible for importing the country's energy requirements. As the smallest country in mainland Africa, it has very limited natural resources of its own and is predominantly an agricultural and tourist-based economy. At number 45 we find the President Walmont Hotel at 43 meters tall. The building itself is nice, but nothing too special, so I'll just tell you instead that as a landlocked country, Malawi is still 20% covered in water. This is because of the massive Lake Malawi, the 9th largest lake in the world, containing the most species of fish of any lake in the world. Next up, at number 44, is the 44 meter tall Udai Shaiki Tower in the Central African Republic. Located in the country's capital, Bangui, it's a residential building with some of the more luxurious apartments in the entire country, which is for the most part quite poor. then go to South Sudan for the Equatorial Tower in its capital Juba, which is actually the youngest capital city in the world, getting its title in 2011. At 45 meters tall, the Equatoria building is quite an interesting one, with the red and blue colors and some interesting shapes throughout the build. Edificio Verde Cara is up next in Cabo Verde. This 46.5 meter tall building was very hard to find pictures of, and also quite challenging to build as it's built on a steep hillside. Which is why you will see me build this hillside as well in just a minute, as it would be kinda silly to try and project a building like this on a flat surface. I think it actually turns out pretty nice. Up next is Somalia, with the 47 meter tall Lido Beach Hotel. It is one of the few hotels on Somalia's most famous beach, serving as one of the country's most touristic locations. It suffers immensely from the violence that keeps many tourists away. Just in the last few years, several terrorist attacks have targeted both locals and tourists around Lido Beach, casting a dark shadow over this otherwise beautiful part of Africa. At number 40 we find the Mast Tower in Djibouti. At 51 meters tall, this is one of the newest and most high-tech office towers in the country. Built on its own island, the tower is covered in beautiful blue glass panels. The tower is occupied by many different international companies that are attracted to Djibouti by its incredibly strategic position in the Horn of Africa, as well as the country's relative stability within the otherwise rather unstable Middle East. We then go to Guinea-Bissau for the 52 meter tall Bissau Cathedral. Only the second religious structure on this list, this Catholic church was completed in 1950 in a modernized neo-romantic style. A fun fact about the building is that its north tower, the one on the left when looking from the front, is actually used as a lighthouse, with a green light installed to guide ships to the port of Bissau. At the number 38 spot we find Immeubles Snim, the headquarters for the National Industrial and Mining Company of Mauritania. Located in Mauritania's capital, it stands at 54 meters tall but is especially just really wide, making it a massive building in terms of volume. It has an interesting shape and it was just a fun build overall. We then go to Equatorial Guinea for the 58 meter tall G-Petrol building in the country's capital Malabo. The building is owned by the country's national oil company and was constructed not too long ago in 2009. It features quite an interesting base to the building, with some curved shapes and different levels, making it quite an interesting build. At the number 36 spot we find the 64 meter tall Sambangura building in Sierra Leone's capital, Freetown. It's a pretty straightforward building, used as an office tower. Its slanted roof and some interesting designs for the windows make it just a little bit more interesting of a build. Next up is Benin, with the BCEAO building in its largest city, Cotonou. Standing at 64 meters tall, it serves as the headquarters for the Benin branch of the Central Bank of West African States. The facade of the building features several traditional African cultural symbols, such as shells carved between the windows. They are represented here by all these birch trapdoors, as I felt those at least came the closest to the look of the real thing. Gabon is next at number 34, with the Banque des États de l'Afrique Centrale, or at least that's as close as I'll get with my poor French pronunciation. It stands at 70 meters tall and serves as the headquarters for the Bank of Central African States, which is pretty much what I just tried to pronounce in French. I think it's a pretty nice building with some interesting shapes that made it really fun to build. At number 33 we find the 70 meter tall ONRTV tower in Chad. Serving as the National Office of Broadcasting and Television, the building is mostly defined by the weird Christmas tree-like spike on top of it. Also, the massive base that the tower stands on makes it feel a bit weird proportionally. then go to Niger for the Ministère des Finances building, which you might have guessed houses the country's Ministry of Finance. It's a really modern building, standing at 75 meters tall. It's located in the country's capital, Niamey, and I think it's quite a nice building. Up next is a bit of a controversial one, because I really wasn't sure whether or not to count this as a building. It's a 78 meter tall National Monument of Heroes in Burkina Faso. I really struggled to find what the floors inside this structure actually look like, but most sources seem to say that most of the building's height does actually contain usable floors, meaning they classify it as a building and not as a tower. So that's why I did choose to include it on this list. It was definitely an interesting build. Mali is next at number 30 with the 80 meter tall BCEAO tower. Built in a neo-Sudanic style, it uses very traditional shapes and colors, making it resemble the shape and style of the ancient mosques of Djenné and Timbuktu. With its vertical outcrops and pointy horns towards the top of the building, it manages to combine modernity with cultural heritage in a beautifully creative way. At number 29 we find the BCEAO headquarters in Dakar, Senegal. Standing at 88 meters tall, this is one of many BCEAO branded towers on this list. This one, however, is actually the headquarters of the entire bank and is the biggest of all the BCEAO buildings. Its curved shape with the vertical elements and balconies on one side made it a very interesting building to recreate. We then go to the Democratic Republic of Congo, also known as Congo-Kinshasa, for the 88 meter tall RTNC Congo building. This building has a kind of triangle design with 3 curved sides, meaning I had to use some geometry and some curves to get the shape in on the ground first. But from there it's a fairly straightforward building, that I think looks quite nice for what it is. Then at number 27 we find a pretty interesting building. The 89.5 meter tall Findeco house in Lusaka, Zambia stands on a much smaller pillar, giving the illusion of a seemingly unstable and top-heavy building. On the very top, 4 massive billboards with the Samsung logo were installed in 2013, and I was really happy to find that I could perfectly fit in this logo built from stairs and slabs as well. You always have to be a little bit lucky with stuff like that. In the end, I think this is one of my favorite buildings on the list. I think it turned out really nice. Next up is the Pearl of Africa Hotel in Kampala, Uganda. Standing 90 meters tall, the building is huge. With over 300 luxury hotel rooms, it is the biggest hotel in the country. Luckily, the largest part of the hotel were these 2 symmetrical wings that I was able to copy over onto the other side. The glass dome in the middle of the structure was also really fun to build. Overall, especially with all the greenery around it, I think it ended up looking really nice. Then the last building in this video, at the number 25 spot, is the Kigali City Tower in Rwanda. This 90 meter tall tower was really fun to build, with the different levels and many different restaurants and shops around its base. The tower itself is covered in beautiful light blue glass, and the whole complex houses a cinema as well. I think it is a really nice build to end the first part of this list with. So that does it for this first part of Africa's tallest buildings. Be sure to subscribe for part 2 of this video, and please do consider giving this video a like, as it really does help the channel a lot. I want to give a special thanks to my Patreons that have supported me over the past few months. If you want to download these buildings and many other maps, feel free to check out my Patreon. for which I will leave a link in the description. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.